There's a famous quote from Warren Buffett that if you don't find a way to earn money while you sleep, you will work until you die. And my guest today, Nick Loper, who, by the way, is the founder of Side Hustle Nation, he's the host of the Side Hustle Show. We were talking just now before hitting the record button about how to reframe your approach to work for profits and not wages, and that is how you create real wealth. So, Nick, before we got too deep into that conversation, I wanted to hit the record button so that we could capture all of it. Let's just start with that premise right there, and then we can dig in deeper.
Yeah, if you're trading hours for dollars in your day job, maybe your side hustle is that thing where you can practice that entrepreneurial skill set and be the owner, have some ownership, have some equity in the thing, and practice working for profits and not wages. For me, the light bulb was grateful to go off pretty early. I was a freshman in college and took this house painting internship where it was go see how many houses you can paint over the course of the summer, which a bunch of 19-year-olds with paint sprayers, like everything that can go wrong does go wrong. Everything like super stressful, super challenging, but also really, really rewarding to stand back at the end of the week and look at the transformation that you made to this property, and to stand back at the end of the summer and say, hey, you did that a couple dozen times and you ran a $60,000 business as a freshman in school. And that was my first taste of working for profits and not wages, and making all the mistakes that come along with that. But it was really, really eye-opening, informative. Like, okay, kind of like almost like this is how the sausage gets made, or like this is the cheat code, or this is like an unlock that was really grateful to have early on.
Yeah, and you brought up a point there that I just wanted to make sure we highlighted, and that is when you work as an employee for someone else, you think in terms of trading your time for money, and you think in terms of your income being tied to the number of hours that you are working. As an entrepreneur, that calculus and that mindset should shift to your income being based on the amount of value that you create for other people. And that means that you can earn enormous hourly rates if you're creating enormous value for people. And Nick, you brought up a really good example of this before we hit the record button that I'll ask you to repeat here just for people about the tutor who you were working with. So just share that story real quickly just to illustrate that point.
Yeah. So a friend of mine was working for one of these big name brand tutoring companies. They were paying him $18 an hour, which for him, hey, this was a pretty good gig, maybe less so today, but during this time period for sure. But then he comes to find out that the company is charging parents $100 an hour. He's like, whoa, what happened to that $82 in the middle there? And so he's like, that's a lot of perceived value that I'm doing the work, I'm doing the labor here, yet they're taking the majority of the income from that. And to be fair, the company is providing some level of infrastructure and overhead and marketing, right? He didn't have to go out and find these clients. He's like, if I could learn that skill set of marketing to go find the customers, all of a sudden I know that my skills are worth $100 an hour. And so by doing that, he was able to really, really explode his hourly rate. And then the next stage was to take it from 1-to-1, again, limited to $100 an hour. Well, what if I could put together a group SAT prep course on the weekend or something? I can teach this 3-hour workshop and charge, families $30 or something, right? But I get 30 kids in there, and all of a sudden I could explode that rate to 500 or $1,000 an hour, up from that original 18, using the same basic skill set. And so it's kind of just a really, really interesting reframe on if I position myself a little bit differently, or if I take the same skills that I have and apply them to a different market or in a different way, I could all of a sudden start to earn way, way more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when people first go into business for themselves, they have some sort of valuable skill set that an employer used to pay them to do, right? And then they go out and I'm just going to do this by myself. But as you kind of touched on there, they don't realize how there are all of these other skill sets that are required to run a business, marketing being the biggest of those. You need to be able to find clients, and that's not necessarily easy to do. And it has nothing to do with the skills of whatever your specialty is, right, that you were doing as an employee.
Yeah.
But you also have to, keep the books and the finances and do all these other things that's involved in running a business. So, but people who can and are willing to learn those extra skill sets, like you mentioned, can just supercharge their hourly earnings to a point where maybe they're not working at all anymore, or maybe they're working that 4-hour work week that Tim Ferriss talks about, where they're doing minimal work but they're earning very good money over time.
Yeah, for sure. And there's lots of different ways to do that. You could leverage other people's skills, like kind of build the agency model, where maybe this guy could have gone the same route as his old employer and hired under other tutors, subcontractors underneath him. Maybe they have expertise in specific subjects. I met a guy years ago who was doing this in the Bay Area. It was like, learn to code. It was like perfect for Bay Area parents, but he went around to the local colleges and it was like, it was never about him doing the one-on-one tutoring. It was about like, oh, I'm going to hire this, computer science major to go be my, tutor. And you just had to manage the schedule and the administration part of it. So you could leverage other people. You could leverage software or code. Like I'm going to build a product, build a website, build a digital downloadable thing and create it once, sell it over and over again. Really elegant model if you could figure out something that works in that space. Or you could leverage capital, right? It's like real estate world of, I'm going to buy an asset and rent it out.
Yeah, and that's obviously the space where we operate in Spark Rental. We focus on investing, and in our case, it's passive real estate investing in order to build passive income and to build our net worths, completely hands off. But there are other ways to do this too. And I think it was Christy Shen wrote a book, Quit Like a Millionaire, where she talks about the three different ways to build wealth. One, you can get lucky, right? Like you can inherit money or you can win the lottery or, but obviously that's not replicable. The second is to grow a business, to start and scale a business, which is a lot more replicable, but it's still not a given, right? I mean, that's there's no guarantees there. And then the third is save, hefty portion of your income and invest it. And that is the most replicable way to build wealth. Anyone can do that, live on, maintain a relatively large savings rate, invest it. And then over time, you'll build your net worth, you'll build your passive income streams. And that, kind of ties into what you were just talking about, how you can leverage people through scaling a business, or you can leverage your capital, you can leverage your money by investing it. That could be stocks, it could be real estate. I mean, obviously, I like both. We talk about stocks and real estate on the show, but it could be It could be anything: private equity, bonds, cryptocurrency, whatever investments you want to make. You can do that, and that is the ultimate replicable way to build wealth. And if you do that enough when you're young, then you don't have to keep doing it. And you and I talked a few minutes before hitting the record button about the concept of coast-fi. Talk to us for a second about that concept of coast-fi.
Yeah, beef with traditional FIRE movement is like, save your money and invest and use the 4% rule and all. It's like that's great if you're a high earner that has low expenses. But for most people, what's the median income, a little over $50,000. If you're spending $49,000 every year, just in terms of taxes and cost of living, which is still a relatively low cost of living, depending on where you're at, that margin is never going to get you there, right? It's like, okay, if I'm only socking away $5,000 a year, it's still going to take decades. And that's where I think, the entrepreneurship path is, yes, maybe fraught with more ups and downs, but like if you have protected your downside and say, well, I'm going to keep my risks low and my upsides high, like it just kind of becomes almost a math equation of, well, something is bound to hit after I learn these skills. And one success erases all the losses and hopefully can compound into something really, really meaningful. But to coast-fi, the point at which you no longer need to keep contributing to your retirement savings. This is like, I'm going to front load, I'm going to live frugally and dump everything I can into retirement savings as early as I can, and then let time and compound interest work to my advantage. You think of, rule of 72 at like a 7 to 10% interest rate, like that money's going to double conservatively every 10 years. And so you could say, project out, if I've got 20, 30 years left in my working career, double it again, maybe even double it again, and say like, that could turn into a pretty sizable chunk of change. And it just means you can kind of take the foot off the gas. You can enjoy life better if you have a job that you enjoy doing, or you can scale back your hours. We've seen people, I'm going to go part-time because I don't need to be as aggressive with my savings anymore. Or I can just take on projects that I enjoy doing because I don't need to be as aggressively saving anymore. And this is kind of where my wife and I have landed in recent years, where it's like, I think we're going to be okay. Like we could probably retire today, but some of this work we still enjoy, it's still fun. Like, how do we scale back the stuff that sucks and focus on what we like doing, and also get better at spending money now to improve the quality of life? And it's not how do I spend money, it's how do I waste money? Because it's like that helps acknowledge that like past decade of frugality where you're like, I know I'm not supposed to spend that, right? But it's like, now give yourself permission to quote unquote waste it to improve your quality of life.
Yeah, and it's such a difficult mindset shift for especially people who are in that fire movement mindset of, I'm going to save and invest as much as I possibly can, especially while I'm younger. Yeah, it's shifting gears to actually spending the money in a way that's meaningful and enjoyable to you. It feels so hard to make that shift, but that is where your life becomes a lot more enjoyable if you can reach that point of coast fi like you mentioned, where you can have a 0% savings rate and still be able to retire, a decade or two or three from now and be fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. I love that quote from Tim Ferriss. That's a great way to just reframe that grind hustle mindset to more of a maximizing your enjoyment and your fulfillment as a working adult.
Yeah, we recently read Die with Zero by
Okay.
Bill Perkins, and it comes across like obviously Bill is like a very, very wealthy. Like I
Yeah.
think I saw somewhere it was like net worth of $100 million. It's like, well, sure, it's easy for you to say, spend all your money, nobody knows when they're actually going to expire. And so it's like, well, I want to have a little bit of margin of safety here. But he has some good reframes in the book about if you die with $1 million left in the bank or left in your savings accounts, like, and you made what, $50 an hour, hundreds of dollars an hour, that was potentially years of your life that you worked that you didn't have to. And like, that was kind of the biggest eye opener for me. It's like, if you didn't love doing that work, like, was there literally nothing else you would have preferred doing that, spending that time? Some of the elements of the book are like written by a rich person for other rich people.
Yeah, no, I hear that. And this is something that is actually quite relevant for me at the moment. My wife and I have spent the last 10 years living abroad, and we've been able to live a pretty comfortable lifestyle on my wife's teacher salary alone. And we've been able to save and invest all of my income, which has let us build our net worth pretty quickly. But we have a good quality of life living overseas. And some of that is that we get free housing as international educators, or as my wife being an international
Yeah,
educator.
yeah, no, that's a great house hack
Oh, it's a great
or,
house
or
hack.
wealth hack. Yeah.
It's been fantastic. But we're about to move back to the U.S. and it's going to be really expensive for us to move back to the U.S. I mean, not even keeping that same quality of life, we're still going to be paying an extra 60 grand a year to live in a major East Coast city. We want to do it because we want to be closer to our family. And ultimately, the point isn't to just hoard as much money as you possibly can, but it's to actually enjoy your life to the maximum extent possible. So,
Right.
we are still going to be saving and investing some money, but not nearly like we were. And that's okay. We're making that shift to saving less, spending more in exchange for that better quality of life. And we want to be close to our family, we want to be close to our friends we grew up with. So, yeah, it's a sacrifice, if you will, a sacrifice in quotations,
Hmm.
that we're willing to make. So anyway, I could drone on forever about that stuff, but Nick, in 30 seconds or less, how do you help people and how can people connect with you if they want to take you up on that help?
So help people find and grow a side hustle of your own, an income stream that you have a little more control over, and hopefully get it started in the spare time that you have. You can find the Side Hustle Show in all your favorite podcast apps or sidehustlenation.com.
Nick, thank you so much for joining us today. This was a lot of fun. I love the conversations that we've had. And guys, if you got a fresh perspective from this quick episode that we did, subscribe to the show for more awesomeness twice a week and pay it forward. Pass it along to a friend, family member, colleague. And lastly, if you're interested in passive real estate investing, in getting the cash flow and the appreciation and the tax benefits of real estate without becoming a landlord, check out sparkfunnel.com/free for a very quick free course on how that works. And stay weird, unconventional investor.